Welcome to Insatiable, the podcast where we discuss the intersection of food, psychology, and culture. I'm your host, Ali Shapiro, an integrated health coach, 32-year and counting cancer survivor, and have radically healed my relationship with food and my body. And for the past 17 years, I've been working with clients individually, in group programs, and in company settings to do the same. Welcome. The information in this podcast should not be considered personal, individual, or medical advice. So 2 episodes ago, I had Philip Pape on about strength training, walking, all the things about, being in shape over 40. And I had met Philip because he had asked me to come on his podcast. And so I am re-airing that episode because it went over really well with his audience. And I think it's a great one for Insatiable as well. And if you like what you hear, I want to remind you that this is some of the stuff that we're really going to help you figure out how this applies to you in my upcoming program, Your Emotional Eating Blueprint, why am I eating this now? Okay. So this is a live program that I'm running in May, 4 weeks, once a week, to help you really understand the root cause of why you fall off track and how you can move forward from there. Because otherwise, you're going to be going down the wrong track, putting a lot of effort for not a lot of results, and continuing to think that perhaps you have food addiction, sugar addiction, food compulsion, a lot of these things. Not to say that none of that stuff is true, but a lot of people think they have that because they don't understand the emotional reasons that they turn to food. And in this episode with Philip, you're going to see a little free sneak preview of the framework that I use with my clients and I've been using for, it took me some time to develop, but I've been in practice for 18 years now. So I hope you'll come join us. And if you're curious about the program, there's a link in the show notes to the program page. But also I'm going to be giving a free workshop on Tuesday, April 29th about get to the root cause of why you're falling off track. So it's actually going to be a free sneak peek of the first lesson of the program in May. Okay. So on Tuesday, April 29th, Get to the Root of Falling Off Track is the free masterclass. And then the next week we start with the program, Your Emotional Eating Blueprint. So if you've been listening to Insatiable for a while, or you just found it and you're like, this makes a lot of sense, and I'm really ready to put my effort into something that's going to give me an amazing return, and you really want to age well and just get this food monkey off your back, whatever it is, I hope you'll join us. And again, the program is only $97. So if you're interested, sign up for that free masterclass, and you'll be on the list where you'll also be notified of some early bird savings. All right. Enjoy today's episode, which is a replay of my interview with Philip. And I'll be back next week with another episode of The Body Stories with Sass Petherick. I'm so glad all of you are loving that series.
I'm your host, Philip Pape, and today we are daring to discuss the deeper roots of food consistency with Ali Shapiro. Now, Ali is a rebel with a serious cause, a pioneer in integrative health, the creator of Truce with Food, and she's the host of the top-ranked Insatiable podcast. She has spent over a decade helping clients break free from the cycle of dieting, frustration, burnout, not to mention the challenge that we face in the industry with the medical system, diet culture, body positivity movements. And she does that in her own unique way. And what I love about Ali's approach is how she goes way past those surface level ideas and the motivational memes about consistency. And she instead helps solve the emotional and psychological roots of why we fall off track. So today you're going to learn why food battles are actually safety battles, how to identify your hidden eating triggers, and a practical path to food freedom that doesn't require white knuckling your way with an unsustainable solution. Ali, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Philip. This is going to be good.
It's going to be awesome. The stuff that you talk about with food safety and the relationship with food is super interesting. And I think a lot of people listening they struggle with these different thoughts that they have, right? Somebody might say, I just can't stop eating, or I have no discipline around food, or it might be very narrow in topic, like I can't help but eat those Hershey Kisses every time I see them, right?
Yeah.
Right? So, so how do you actually, we know it's not about food, I think is where we're going to get to in this conversation. They're telling you something else. So in your words, you've mentioned something about the relationship with safety being part of that. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. And I love that we want to define our terms because safety could be a lot of things, right? Let me start with the food as an example, because it can be about the food. And you talk about this a lot on Wits and Weights. So if you think about like you're sometimes having thoughts of like, oh my God, I need, I don't know, a burger or something, right? That might be your body feels physically unsafe because your blood sugar isn't balanced, right? It's like you don't have enough protein, right? And so that food noise is driven by your body saying, I am unsafe. I may have the calories, but I don't have the nutrition I need, right? Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think
True hunger. Yes. Physical
yes,
hunger.
true hunger,
Yeah.
right. So I look at everything through this lens of safety. What most people, if we go out one ring, if we're looking at like safety rings, like I think of like physical, emotional, spiritual, right? But emotional is kind of in between that. And all of us have this deep primal need to basically feel at home in the world, right? Feel at home in our bodies, feel at home when we're at home with our families, feel at home at work in a way that we feel we can contribute. So I think we can think of emotional as safety as like abstractly kind of feeling at home. But on a biological level, we also need to know that we have that safety. So even though in America, we kind of have this highly individualistic, like, and I'm all for personal responsibility. This is about holding the and we need each other. And so one of the really interesting things that, wasn't available to Maslow when he was creating his hierarchy of needs that neuroscience has now proven is that this sense of belonging is more important than even having your basic needs met. And that's because we can think about safety as when you're a child, right? You need someone to care about you to get your basic needs met, right? The caretaker, feeling at home and being at home with that caretaker. And again, there's lots of variations in that definition, but you need someone to care about you enough that they're going to get you to where you can be self sufficient. But still, even as adults, we still have a need to have other people and feel like we have our place in the world and that we can contribute. And so that's what I mean by feeling a sense of safety.
Yeah, it's a profound and almost mind-blowing place to flip the idea of you mentioned Maslow's hierarchy of needs and saying that we are social creatures. You have no argument for me on that at all. I used to be a very much like independent cause, like we're all, in my idealistic youth, right? It's all me. But I've come to realize through family and friends and business and life, and also, like you said, biology and what we've learned about evolution, that we wouldn't be humans without depending on each other for that. Babies are helpless for the first few months of their life because they're able to survive with humans. So your work then proposes that this food noise gets louder because we are feeling separate or feeling alone. And I think you even talk about the physiological piece of that, like the stimulants or the attachment chemicals in our brain, I believe. So, let's keep going down that thread just so people understand, okay, what exactly is happening. And we're not talking about physical hunger. We're talking about, what do you call it? Physiological or psychological, emotional hunger?
Yeah, I would say it's emotional hunger. Like it's the metaphor of hunger, right? Because our body doesn't speak in language; it speaks in metaphor.
That's good. Stop. Hold on. A metaphor of hunger. Okay, this is great. A client of mine recently went back and forth because I was saying, let's address your hunger. And she's like, it's not hunger. It's not hunger. It's cravings. I'm like, oh, I see what you're getting at. And I think this is part of the thing we want to clear up with terminology is that hunger is like not just food hunger. It's hunger for many other things.
Yes, yes. And you can, I've sometimes call it phantom hunger, but I think it's also realizing that yes, hunger is a metaphor, right? And so once you know your blood sugar's balanced, your gut health, your strength training, like you got all the physical safety, right? And you're still having that food noise. So I'll give you a couple food examples of how people, when that food noise, when it's an emotional food
Great.
noise, right? And these are come straight from client examples, right? I was just starting with the client and she's like, okay, so I'm all or nothing. And I I think all or nothing that's a whole other podcast. But I was like, okay, so when do you get into your nothing phase where you're like, chuck it, F it, right? And she's like, well, like I'll be eating really healthy. And then my kids want to go to Chick-fil-A and we're rushed and it's convenient and easy. And so I will just be like, okay, I'm going to just eat this for this lunch. And then the whole day is ruined. Right.
Mhm.
And what we were able to parse out is that she actually has a story that her needs are inconvenience. She's like, I've been told I've been an inconvenience like my whole life. Right. And so it's like, okay, so in that moment, she didn't even know that she had needs. Right. It was just like, oh, I want it to be easy. I have this food noise. This is the most easy, path to that. Because feeling our emotions actually requires space and time because, so many of us are going, going, going. But that's an example of, and it's unconscious, not because it's deep and dark, but just because you're going on automatic pilot. But she had a need there to feel like, I want to eat something healthy, but she thought that was in conflict with what her kids wanted. And she didn't want to be an inconvenience there.
Okay. I see. She didn't want to be an inconvenience herself too. Oh, isn't it funny how we separate our kids from ourselves sometimes like that, unconsciously or not?
Yeah, yeah. And so it's like, okay, we need to work on like, how is this not like eating healthy is all on you. Like you have to carry the family that way. Like, because when we're often in all or nothing, we think things are, there's a conflict between our needs and everyone else being happy. So that's like the safety, right? Oh, if people are happy and they get their way, then I'm still going to be included here. Is kind of the assumption in that particular case. So there was a need to want to eat healthy, but there was also a competing need, the perception of being an inconvenience. And obviously, you can reconcile both of those once you understand what's happening. But that's one example of emotional safety.
Yeah, and how did you uncover that? Like, how does someone listening uncover that? For them? Obviously, we're always going to say, go talk to Ali. She's a great coach. Yeah. Join her program and all. But in reality, people want to understand, what are the tools here? What are the strategies for doing that?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is to realize that when you have, phantom hunger that's not physical, the go-to knee-jerk reaction is to beat yourself up, to be like, oh, I told myself I wasn't eating the Hershey Kisses today, right? Like, why am I like, I can already see myself going home and eating them, or if they're at your coworker's, desk. I don't know. Do people work in person anymore? I don't.
Yeah, it's true. The bowls are there. Yes.
yeah, you're still there all these years later. I knew they were there when I was in corporate. So the first thing is just to say, like, why does this make sense? So rather than beating ourselves up, because you were talking earlier about that physiological need for safety. And so what you were talking about is what Dr. Deborah McNamara talks about in her book, Nourished. She's a child developmental psychologist, but she talks about how food stimulates attachment chemicals. So but it doesn't give us the deeper belonging that we actually need. So from the time we're born, right, food gets coupled with someone cares about you. So as adults, we turn to the food, we feel like someone cares about us, but we don't actually have the support of it's not a caretaker when you're an adult, but it's people that care about you, including yourself, advocating for your needs. So that's why you have to say, first of all, why does this make sense? Like on a primal level, I need to feel this emotional safety. And it's my hunger, this emotional hunger as a metaphor is pointing me to the fact that I do not have it. Like that is all that's telling you. It's a symptom, not the problem.
And what is your opinion on the idea that there are different angles of attack for this, right? And there are different tribes and camps. And I know how you're big, like me, you are skeptical of anybody who goes all in one direction. But there's the idea that we can use tools and strategies to process our way through. In other words, not necessarily have to uncover the root cause, just find something that helps us move forward. And then maybe it eventually resolves the issue versus going all in on the psychology side, uncovering your deepest, darkest secrets from when you were a child to like figure it all out, right? Like a therapist. Like, what is your thought on that spectrum? Do you know what I'm asking? When it comes to like you could just change your environment. That's a common strategy that's talked about, right? Like change your kitchen environment and put food where you don't see it. And like those strategies, you know what I'm saying? And they can help people without always understanding the trigger fully. And I think you need both. It depends, but I'm curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer. I think if someone's new to all of this, they should try that. And if it works, my clients have tend to be overwhelmed by all of that. They've tried it. And I think of like, for example, some of my clients had food insecurity as a kid,
Mhm.
right? And so them not having food in the house makes them feel emotionally unsafe. It's like even though I know logically, and this actually,
Yeah.
I actually had a couple of clients who were cruising and then COVID came and they just needed one spot session because they were like, why is this food noise back? Like I have not had this for years. And I was like, what feels hard about it? Like that's the next question. What feels hard about it right now? And it was like, oh my God, there's supply chain issues. I can't get all the food I need. I am back to being 8 years old again and not knowing if we were going to be able to eat at night. And so I think what ends up happening is we give people these blanket prescriptions, not knowing like what does that trigger? Because even if you change your environment, even if you do all of this stuff, you still have to be with other people. You still need to interact with people. And so and for example, I also had one client, she was trying to do mindful eating. Okay. And we were actually working on her feeling really alone and isolated in her life. And she had friends around her and all this stuff, but there was still stuff that she didn't realize she wasn't bringing like her full self to her relationships, right? And so she ended up feeling quite alone, even though she was around other people who liked her and cared about her. And she was like, I've tried the mindful eating stuff. I know I'm not supposed to listen to podcasts. I know I'm supposed to breathe. And she's like, but when I do that, it's so apparent how alone I am. Like,
Yes, because she's just with her own thoughts. She's even more alone. Okay,
and
interesting.
I was like, turn on the podcast.
Yeah.
Like that's not. And I think because you're an engineer, you'll appreciate there's like a sequence over strategy, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, all of these strategies will work at some point, potentially for you, but what is the sequence that it makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
like
So
a decision tree. Yeah.
yeah, if someone is, I have a lot of clients who have like, Hashimoto's or maybe on the pre-diabetic track or something, right? Like if you may need to stabilize yourself physically, but if you've already tried that and it's like, I know what to do, but I can't do it, maybe I need to look at more the psychology. And I would also say, and I know that it's both camps, but we know what stress, the way that I look at it is like, whenever you're working on the physiology, you're also working on your psychology. And whenever you're working on your
Fair point.
psychology,
Yes.
yeah, it's just like an infinity feedback loop. So it's like the psychology I was going to say is also realizing that so much of our safety is in our body. So it's like these emotional needs generate our thoughts. So I do more developmental psychology where I'm like, I'm not concerned about all of these thoughts going on. We need to look at the deeper need that makes you think you're trying to be good in your thoughts, but it's driven by a need that needs you to question if that's really the good thing to do. Right. So like, for example, oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No. Please.
yeah.
You had an example. Yeah.
So, for example, one of my clients, she would find herself, before going out to eat, this was before we started working together. She's like, I will go look at the menu and I will know what I want to do. I want to make the healthy choice. And then I get there and I am just like, go with the flow. I'm going to order, and it's like, what is happening? And it's like, oh, she was feeling high maintenance. Like when we actually got to it, right? It was like, she thought the good thing was to be easygoing and eat with
Oh,
everyone else.
she felt judged or whatever for being too prepared or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the perception, and this was based on the past. Again, it wasn't deep dark
Right.
into her childhood. It was just like, oh, like my family judged picky eaters, right? And so it's like, if I didn't know that, I'm putting that on my friends now. Which so then we have her try. It's like, all right, that's a small risk. Next time, just say, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to order this. Like, what happens? And it's like, oh, nothing happened. In fact, like it opened up this great conversation about, oh, I know this is embarrassing, but I used to feel pressured to eat with all of you guys. And then it opened up this big, deeper conversation, generated more emotional safety about like, you can totally eat what you want. I sometimes feel pressure. The next time a couple other of her friends ordered different. And so what's often happening with our perception is we're we're always bringing the past to the present, right? Like all of us. So we're often thinking like the good thing was to just go with the flow, be low maintenance, don't be a burden. And what the task of developmental psychology as adults is to say, wait a second, this is what I learned. And it's not my work is, even though maybe we will touch on the hard things that happened in childhood. It's really about the cultural conditioning
Yes.
of what everyone thinks is normal that is good or bad, right? Um,
Yes.
and so it's like that's I'm like normal. The more you do this work, the more you're like normal's batshit crazy, But we keep going along.
Yeah, yeah. No, you hit me so hard there. The cultural, because I was even thinking of alcohol and like the more extreme things that we rationalize to some nth degree. And it wouldn't make any sense if an alien came to our planet and said, "What are you doing to yourself? Like, what are you guys doing?" It's part of our culture. It's our conditioning. And there's behavioral psychology, there's social psychology and learned behavior. So I think the average person, if they could know more about what you're saying and kind of be just open to it and aware of it, will help maybe interrupt some of those patterns initially just from the awareness. Here's my, maybe this is a deeper question or maybe not. Why are we even talking about this? And what I mean by that is, why is food itself the thing? Like, many of your clients are probably just like mine. They're highly independent, they're intelligent, they're disciplined, they're high achievers, they're successful in a lot of things. Why do they struggle with food? I mean, and we're talking everybody. Like, it's almost everybody has some struggle with this. Is it because it's your area of expertise and we're talking about it, or is it literally come to the top of the list because it's something we need every day as humans? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
I love that you asked that because when I'm out in the wild and people are like, "What do you do?" Like the easiest way is to be like, "I help people who want to eat and be healthy do it, and they can't." And they're like, "Isn't that all of America?" And I'm like, "I'm like, yeah." I'm like,
All
"Yeah,
human beings,
yeah."
yeah.
But I think it comes down to like nature really designed food to be communal and to help us. Like if you think about um like it helped us if we think about belonging, even if we go out to the original belonging is belonging to the land, right? Like food helps orient us. That's a form of safety. Like here's the season you're in, right? Here's how to take care of your body. And I think about food being the most intimate relationship we have. Like what we eat literally becomes our blood, our bones. Like you can't get more intimate than that. And so I think between that, we feel healthier when we feel rooted into place. We feel healthier when we're rooted into family, into community. And again, I'm pulling from some of Dr. Deborah McNamara's book Nourish, but she talks about like nature creating this exquisite design of how, mealtime is really about, like I said before, feeling our feelings requires space and safety. And it's like mealtime is often the chance to like slow down and feel these feelings. And then you have the food as like almost what can't be said, right? Like if when I think about when people pass away, what do people do to show you that they're there for you? They bring a casserole, they
True. Yeah.
bring, and it's so to me, it's just like nature, quote unquote, comfort food isn't bad. It's necessary. It's when we're turning to comfort for something that it can't, it can't,
Fulfill.
yeah, it can't
Yeah.
fulfill. Right.
Satisfy. It can't,
Yeah.
you're insatiable. There you go.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Gordon Newfield says there's who is Dr. McNamara's mentor. He says there's nothing as addictive as something that almost works. And it's like the food almost works, but it's the care that's in constant that is what we really need. And I think in our culture that has a lot of food issues, I don't think we have a lot of communal care. You're expected to do everything yourself.
The care ensconced in food and the experience of food is what we need. Oh, I love that. I like the word ensconced too, but
Okay. I was like, I don't know where that came from.
it's great. I know, it's so poetic, right? Like, this is great. Yeah, so many things come to mind, like just humanity and culture and religion as well, like people with different religions and how food is a central part of that. And like, we don't want to deny those things. We don't want to, like, what you're implying here is that there can be absolutely a comfort and enjoyment of food. And I've seen people post comments to when I've said that before. I'm like, if you can enjoy your food, if it satisfies you and you can eat it without guilt, like that's a great place to be. Oh, you shouldn't enjoy food, or food is fuel. Like,
Oh,
what are
yeah.
your thoughts of those like,
I think
food is fuel. You shouldn't enjoy food. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it's right?
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
fuel.
Yeah.
And again, when we think about, the Surgeon General said loneliness is more dangerous than smoking, right?
For
And again,
longevity and health, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we're in a
Yeah.
culture that loves to measure and quantify it. And I love numbers and all that stuff. And I think the best things in life you can't always quantify. Like, you have kids, it's like, oh my God, I saw that dance recital. It's like, how do you quantify that feeling of pride of seeing your kid like nail something after struggling with it, or even in yourself, right? Like even at the gym, like it's like when I can just get like even like 1 pound more on the squat rack, it's like it. I mean, yes, I know I've done better because of the 1 pound, but it's like it's the strength and the courage that ultimately is like what makes, I think, life worth meaning. So I think food can be fuel, and I think we need, if you're struggling with it, or if you I would just, I think of food as a metaphor. So I'd be really interested with someone who thinks it's only fuel.
Yeah.
Like, what are you missing out on that you don't think you
What are you
need?
missing out on? Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And I joke all the time on my podcast how I'm like kind of a foodie, and my wife and I are very different. Like she can basically eat anything and it kind of all tastes the same to her. I mean, she admits that's just how her taste buds are. You know how there's like two super tasters and
Yeah.
whatnot. She appreciates really good food, but I'm at the next level. Like I could tell you what ingredients are in there or not in there. You know, this needs more of this, needs more of that. So there is a fun connection. And I like how you tied it to how we feel when we accomplish things or when we're in the gym or whatever, because it's so central to the human experience.
Well, I was going to go back to one level deeper too, because this is, I mean, this is the spiritual level, but depending on your beliefs, I mean, I think God is part of the earth, right? So it's like, it's almost also this like spiritual, right? And like you said, all religious traditions, right, revolve around food and the symbolism there. So we can also look at, it is like us, like the universe, right? It's like communing with that, like, right? And when you're like, I often say to clients, like, because sometimes people will come to me like, I struggle with portion control. And I'm like, well, tell me a time where portion control was easy. And it's like, oh, when I went to my family's and we make this thing, let's call it sourdough bread. I don't know. That's probably because I just was on Instagram and everyone makes
Love
sourdough
sourdough
bread.
bread.
But it's like, oh my God, it takes so long, but we all do it together. And it's like, oh my God, that spiritual experience of being with others and having, and just like that is like the nourishment that we really want. And so I also think it's just food is spiritual for how I think of the earth and what it provides as part of that spiritual energy that has created all of this.
Yeah, and if I were to connect that for people who are not as spiritual, and that's cool, I would say that making food's one of the last primal things we do.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
other than sex, right? It's
Yeah.
making food and that. Like we don't build our own houses. I mean, most of us don't. I built a little bit of my house, but I would never do that again. But we don't build it. Like we don't build shelter. We don't hunt for our food even
Yeah.
anymore. We don't do all the primal things. So maybe it's just like a vestige of what's left from our primal, nature.
Yeah.
As we're on the internet talking on a podcast. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Hey, it's holding the end. It's holding the end.
Yeah, it's holding the end. I like that. Holding the end. Isn't that the technique in improv comedy to always say "and" to your partner?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Yes.
say what they
And.
said. And Conan O'Brien's really good at that. His podcast. What's it called? Conan Meets a Friend. One of the best podcasts ever. If you like it.
I really liked him.
Yeah.
Why did the Night Late Show with him not work out? That feels like forever ago, but I was
I
rooting
think
for
he's
him.
thriving now though on the podcast. You should check it out. Yeah,
Good.
it's funny.
Okay, good.
Getting off on a little tangent here, but that's okay. So I guess going back to, I always have a bunch of questions and notes that I never get to, which is cool. So handling stress and the loneliness of all of this, and then tying that to falling off track with food. Where do we want to take it to? What's the next step, right? So now we understand there's the psychology of it. We understand why food is maybe important on both sides of it. Talk about the loneliness and the stress and handling that and falling off track, because ultimately we want to get back on track. Or maybe it's not even a track. Like maybe we should talk about, is there really even a track? Is that a faulty premise? I don't know.
I freaking love that you asked that question because, of course, I use that in my marketing because that's
Yes.
right. But there isn't a track. If you know how to learn from what's happening, it's all the same, and this comes down to religion as well. There's certain spiritual traditions that believe like everything's welcome. It's not a problem, right? To try to right. But in America, we believe you have to earn your goodness. So it's like falling off track is bad versus like, why does this make sense? What can I learn from this? And so I think if people, and I love that you use the word alone, because that is, and especially for people listening, that you feel alone if you're secret eating, right? Like that's what I tell clients. Like your food is always telling you what your needs are in a metaphor. So a lot of my clients, for example, will like after their kids, like like their kids are melting down or something, they just like escape to the pantry, and it's
Oh,
like
secret eating. Okay, secret
yes,
eating.
secret
Very
eating,
important.
yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Secret
I
eating
got it.
or waiting till everyone's alone. You're
Yeah.
doing it in your car at night, whatever. That's a symbol, or that's a symptom, symbol, metaphor, whatever you want to say, that you're feeling unsupported somehow in your life. So kind of and I'm going to give you these steps, and knowing that this can be hard because often the emotions are so overwhelming that you may have to ask yourself this 3 or 4 days after the fact. So in Truth with Food, I always wait. I always tell people, like, in the beginning, it's kind of like we're just saying, like, can we catch this after the fact? Not till you're like 2 or 3 months in are you going to be able to like catch yourself in the moment, because these needs, the more we restrict these emotional needs, kind of like the more you restrict your hunger, then they come back even more in terms of that kind of unnameable energy that causes people to turn to food. So, why does this make sense? And then when the food noise is happening, right? Like if you're my client who was like in the pantry, right, with her after like her kid, like hiding from her kids, right? It's like, what feels hard about this, right? And if again, if you're also eating alone, you might want to say it may not be about what just happened the day, like the moment you left work and now you're in your car. It may be something that happened, but because our emotions take space to like actually feel and unfurl, it's not going to be like this happened and then this and then the food noise happened. It's going to be like once I act. Although for many of my clients, the food noise is just a constant hum, right? It's like a rock in their shoe. So it's like it's all the time. What do you
Which
mean?
could make it even harder to tie it to the thing, which is why we need to dig in here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think saying like, what feels hard about this, right? And it's like I feel alone in parenting, right? I feel alone. Trying to think of a recent, yeah, I feel alone with my family trying to eat healthy, right? I feel alone. I'm trying to think when I struggled with food. I felt my corporate job was like, um, my corporate job was like stressful but boring. I don't know if that makes
Oh
sense.
no, I totally understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I was in my early 20s, but I had cancer at 13, and I was like, "Why am I wasting my time? I don't this feels so hard to, like, be spending my all my time, and I don't know what I wanna do." And, so it's like I felt really and a lot of my friends were, like, really into climbing the corporate ladder, which I get, but I was just like, "That's just not, like," you
Like you
know
didn't have a purpose.
yeah, like, for
Yeah.
me, that just did not seem
Yeah.
enticing, you know? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and I was in a competitive corporate job, and I was doing that, but I was like, "This sucks." And again, I have friends who love that, right? Like,
Sure.
I have friends who love corporate, but it made me feel even more alone because, again, having cancer at 13, it sets you on just a different existential track, let's put it that way. So you wanna ask yourself, like, "What feels really hard about this?" And then you wanna try to unearth the need that's within that difficulty, right? So, and there's one of the intermediary steps that you can ask yourself what feels hard about this. You can say, what's at the tail end of my food noise? And tail stands for TAIL. And this will help you identify the underlying kind of state of being. So T is for tired, right? So a lot of my clients are at the end of the night, they're like, I deserve this. And it's
Hmm.
like, why does it make sense? I'm exhausted. I've had no fulfillment all day. It's, get up, get the kids, work, get home, get the kids. And now it's like, this is the only reward of the day.
Yeah. And it could
So,
happen at 3 p.m. in the afternoon too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Yes.
I've heard it all.
Yeah. Well, and if you're going through perimenopause or menopause and have like sleep issues, it could be like first thing in the morning. And so T is tired, A is anxious, and this is uncertainty. And this is uncertainty from the outside. So I don't know about you, but I know I had a lot of clients come to me during COVID, right? COVID was like this uncertain time. Like, what is happening? How long is lockdown? People are sick? Should I go outside? Right. So that uncertainty, we saw alcohol and food consumption like skyrocket, right? Our public health went down considerably, right? Not to mention like, kids' mental health. So anxiousness is like uncertainty from the outside. Then the I is inadequacy. And that is when we're wondering, is it me? Like I had a client who in Truth with Food, it was awesome. She was able to interrupt the cycle because she went to a new job and she was like learning all the systems and everything, but she accidentally did like the wrong project. And she's like, it made me feel so inadequate. And she's like, my old way of being would have been like, okay, you're going to work and you're going to fix it. And then you're going to eat because this sucks while you're doing this. She's like, what I started to do is like, I'm going to tell my boss, like, but she had to, she felt inadequate, but I was like, are you really inadequate or are you new to the job? So it's like, you need someone who's like, I have this need for an extension of time. And the boss was like, yeah, but I definitely need it by Wednesday. Let's make sure that you understand, and it was like, oh my God, you can do that? She was like, it
was
was
probably
like,
a big relief. Yeah.
yeah. But when we're feeling inadequate, we're like, it's me, not the environment or the contextual, the specifics of the circumstance. And then last one is that loneliness of like, I just feel separate from here in some way. I feel alone. Often a way that that you're having that lonely trigger is you're like, if I was thinner, this would not be happening, right? That's a common way of kind of offloading the sense of aloneness of, I would be dating now if I was thinner. I would have already asked for that promotion if I felt more confident in my body. And all of that stuff, again, holding the and can help. And you don't have to wait for that. You can start working on the skills you need, to get better communication in relationships, or what is the path to the promotion and who do you have to talk to? So those are the triggers of like, when you can say, why does this make sense? What's at the tail end of this? And then there's needs within, each of those triggers.
Yeah, love it. I love frameworks like that. No, this is really good. And I know, we could do multiple episodes about each one of these. But I like having that framework where it's definitely not just one thing and we oversimplify it sometimes. And we talked earlier, you can't just patch it or band-aid it with a tool or one size fits all. Like here are the tips for how to blah, blah, blah. Right.
But you can use a framework, right? Framework gives you agency. So
yeah, for sure. And it's nuanced and it gives you options to kind of dig into each of these. And as you were saying them, I was thinking, oh yeah, interesting. Thinking about my past where I struggled for like 20 years with food and I always thought it was a very different way than others. And that's true because we all get there in different ways. Inadequacy is an interesting one, right? That I assume that's uncertainty from the inside because you said anxiety is uncertainty from the outside, right?
Self-doubt is an easier way of saying it.
Self-doubt. And I like the example you gave because I bet anybody listening can think almost every day a situation where you screwed up or did something, or maybe somebody gave you a disappointing answer, right? Like I wanted to do this collaboration with another podcaster. His PR person's said, no, he's not interested. And immediately you think, okay, it's me, right? Like there's something wrong with me. And of course you could ask, you could say, oh, can you help me understand why? But like 90% of the time, it's some other situation that has nothing to do with you. At the same time, I like your thought of nothing is bad. Everything is, you should be curious, right? Be curious and look at it as a way to learn, even if it is something you did. I mean, sometimes there is that. So,
well, and what happens is like when we struggle with food, it wears away at our self-trust a lot. And so what ends up happening is if we don't ask those questions, like, what could I do? Or I love that podcaster example. Like, oh, why did I remember pitching someone that I was friends with, like friendly, how it is. And like, I heard nothing back. And so I was like, look, I understand your platform is like, next to mine. If that's the issue, that's fine. I'm just following up. And she's like, no, let's do it. But it was like, I mean, that's like a happy ending. But you sometimes in this business,
but you stewed in it for a while, right?
Yeah.
Until you got that answer.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is like, we have that inadequacy trigger will stay until we actually learn the skills of like, so if someone said, if they were like, look, it was great, it's just bad timing and they're going to have an opening in September. It's like, okay. Or if they were like, I mean, you're a podcaster. I get like 90% of the pitches I get are horrible. I know yours would not be horrible. But like, if you're someone who keeps getting denied, it's not that it's you, it's the skill set that you can learn, right? To like, okay, you need to get better at pitching. Otherwise, you're going to keep thinking it's you rather than realizing. So that's part of like the work as well, is like, all right, I have this need. I want to be on this podcast. And it's like, okay, let's work backwards and figure out, because you're capable, right? You can.
Yes.
That sounds like criticism. But now, okay, I know that we're kind of running out of time, but tell me about like, what were the 20 years like? What was going on for you if you think of that frame?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get, it's not a big dramatic story, to be honest. But, from the time I got out of college to when I was about 40, I just didn't know how to eat or train or anything. And so I was constantly dieting and yo-yoing and all of that. So But when you mention things like eating in secret, because I definitely have clients that deal with that, and I've thought of my own times in the past doing that, eating in a car, or when I was in my 20s and there was like relationship issues, I would like go to Friendly's and buy like this huge chocolate fudge sundae and then just like eat it in my bedroom. You know what I mean? And stuff like that, which I couldn't imagine doing now. But you know what? It took a lot of learning about yourself and that empathy, that like self empathy and tools and practice and falling on your face over and over to like figure it out. So
Right.
yeah,
But can you see, isn't it interesting, friendlies and relationship issues? Doesn't that make sense? It's like, okay, it makes sense because I don't know what the relationship issue was, but like,
yeah,
let's just say you wanted to be in a relationship or you had a fight or whatever. It's like, oh my God, I'm feeling alone in this. So it's like the food gives me the attachment
exactly,
chemicals.
exactly.
So can you see how like that,
Oh,
like
for sure, for
it
sure.
lines
Yeah,
up? I appreciate you
yeah,
sharing because I think everyone listening should ask themselves, like, when was food easy for me? And when was it hard for me? And you will probably see this theme because once you see it, you can't unsee it, but it takes kind of a while because it's invisible, right?
it is, it is, and you can. I mean, as coaches, you can kind of see pretty quickly in talking to someone that maybe they're on one side of that precipice or another, right? Like you can. I mean, unless they're putting on a bold face, right? Like some people might do initially until you really learn who they are deeper down. But yeah, you can tell in people's language sometimes, like this is not really an issue. Let's focus on the facts and let's get to our goal. And others are like, well, I keep falling back off track on this thing. So now that you asked about me, I actually want to ask about you because you mentioned, I know your history of an early cancer diagnosis. I know you've talked about that on your podcast as well. I mean, where does all this come from in this desire to help people do this? Because I imagine it's from a deep place for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I started struggling with my weight like probably when I was around, oh my God, I'm so bad with like ages, but probably like 7 or 8. And at the time, I didn't understand like what I know now with my functional medicine background is like I had been exposed to pesticides a couple like right before that. And I have like an overactive immune system. I mean, based on the type of cancer I had, that's what it was. But I started to gain weight around 8 or 9 years old. And I think it was from the inflammation from the pesticide exposure because I was an active kid. Like we ate, my dad was a health and phys ed teacher. My mom grew up on a quote unquote organic farm. They didn't call it organic at the time. It was just like my grandma was all about nutrition. Like she believed in that, like in the 40s. She was so progressive. And so we ate really healthfully and everything. And I just started to gain weight. And I tried to I did. Do you remember Richard Simmons, like
Oh
deal a
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
meal a meal. I tried Weight Watchers at 11. And but what had happened in between that is I had been bullied in 5th grade. And I think and my parents, I mean, you and I are around, I think the same age, like the 80s and 90s, people just
I'm only 25, just so you know. Just
yeah.
kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I'm 44, so
Okay, yeah, so I'm like a couple years older than you, but it was like no one has done feelings, until recently. So it was just,
yeah.
and I think I was like so ashamed. Like I could have told my parents, but I didn't. And so that's when I would start coming home and eating bagels. Like my parents were city school teachers. We didn't have bagels in the suburbs yet. This is how long ago
Okay.
that was. And so there would be these like cinnamon raisin bagels, and I would just come home and be so, I mean, it's called an emotional immune system, which is basically your belonging system. But it was so alarmed that it was like because I had been ostracized, right, from all of these girls, that it was like those bagels saved my life. I mean, they then caused me to gain weight and like then feel even more ostracized. And then, yeah, then I got, obviously went through cancer at 13 and lost a ton of weight and was like the thinnest that I had ever been. And because it was still the early 90s, like not a lot of difference of media, I had still internalized that health equals thinness only. And so it felt like there was all this pressure to stay thin to not, not have a relapse that, and then when I was in high school, I could outrun my eating. Like I got up every morning, like, I mean, I ran a lot. Like I definitely was like, okay. And you get attention, from boys. It was like, oh, this is amazing. But then when I went to college, which again was that uncertainty trigger, even though I was really excited to go, I was a smart kid. Like it wasn't academically challenging. It was just, oh my God, this is different. It was like my emotional eating started to turn more into binging and stuff like that. And so that's like a brief, history of my background. But yeah, no, this is, And again, when I found functional medicine in my early 20s and was able to reverse my depression, my IBS, all of this stuff, and lose 15 pounds, but then I couldn't keep it up when I was stressed. I'm like, no one has more incentive to be healthy than a cancer survivor. And I know all of this stuff now, that food can be medicine, not just calories. And I was like, there has to be more to this because I'm pretty disciplined. So that's kind of how I came to it. And I just, you know this. I mean, I love what you do because you can be with the nuance, but the default narratives in this industry are just like so outdated. And it's like, come on, people, like, let's update our software here, you know?
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'd like to give a big shout out to my nutrition coach, Philip Pape. With his coaching, I have lost 17 pounds. He helped me identify the reason that I wanted to lose weight, and it's very simple: longevity. I want to be healthy, active, and independent until the day I die. He introduced me to this wonderful little app called Macro Factor. I got that part of my nutrition figured out. Along with that is the movement part of nutrition. There's a plan to it, and he really helped me with that. The other thing he helped me with was knowing that I need to get a lot of steps in. So the more steps you have, the higher your expenditure is, and the easier it is to lose weight. When it's presented to you like he presents it, it makes even more sense. And the other thing that he had was a hunger guide, and that really helped me. So thank you, Philip.
I get the sense, I don't want to generalize, but I get the sense that people, once they learn a little bit of information, they're experts, right? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, maybe we all do it. I'm sure I do it as well. I try not to. I was having a text chat with a friend of mine, lifting buddy, and we were saying how both of us had mentors early on that taught us the value of humility and like asking stupid questions, like asking. And I told him I had a boss of mine maybe 15 years ago who knew, he had 20 years of experience, and he would always go into a new project asking questions like a third grader. Like, I initially was shocked because he would ask questions that I feel like other people would feel embarrassed to ask. But then you realize everybody else wanted to ask the same question. You could tell because they're like, "Oh, I'm glad he asked that," and that's how he would just learn really fast. So why did I bring that up? Because we're talking about the industry, and I think there has to be that curiosity and openness that you don't know what you don't know, right? Which is
that's the hardest part.
And even what you do know may be subject to change because you don't have all the facts or all the information. So the other cool thing is about you, Ali. Since we met, how did we meet? I don't know. It was through podcast pitching or something, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. In fact, your person probably reached out to me, and then I'm like, can I go on your podcast too? Because that's my technique nowadays, is try to like set up a collaboration, But anyway, where was I going with all this? That you and I come to this from different places, the same intent, like we want to help people, obviously. But like, I couldn't figure all this out till I was 40, and I did it in a different way than necessarily uncovering the emotional side. But when I speak to folks like you, who's an expert in this other realm, I love it because you're like, you come on here and you teach me and the listener that there are just so many things that we can, not that we have to be overwhelmed with, but that we have tools to process with, right? To get through these. Like, because I talk about data all the time and tracking and awareness, and I think there's a place for that.
Yes.
But some people have other trauma and things that they got to deal with. An unnamed energy, or what did you call it? You called it unnamed
some clients
energy.
call it,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because some clients call it automatic pilot. Some clients feel like they're like, something voracious just comes over me. Yeah. And what it really is their emotional immune system is so alarmed that they feel so unsupported, or their needs are not being met. And there's no amount of, like, I always tell clients, you can do all the morning routines. You can have every hack available to you, but we have a primal need to have these caretaking needs met.
Yeah. Belonging.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm all about less is more. Like, you can, self-care is being self-aware these days. Don't get me wrong. I have a sauna too. I mean, I'm not like a purist here.
No, for sure. Self-care is being self-aware. No, I love that. And it goes both ways. Yeah, absolutely. So when the belonging thing, so just to pull on that a little bit, when we talk about the T.A.I.L method and understanding where these things come from, how do we then get to the trust that we want? That's the big question. A good way to maybe wrap up this segment today.
But I will say, for people, I mean, I'm not going to get into the boring academic piece of why this happens, but when people can just start to identify those T.A.I.L triggers, if they are like in Truths with Food, we talk about 7-inch, 7-foot, 70-foot waves. If they're 7-inch waves, like they're just like, oh, I'm tired. That sometimes that's enough to be like, this the more you do it, the more you're like, oh, this isn't about the food.
Yeah.
And so like the more you can see that, even that starts to restore self-trust, because so many of my clients, like, I've tried everything, right? If there was a solution out there, I would have already known by now. Like they really feel like they're broken in some way, or they love food too much. That's also sometimes what people think. So understanding, why does this make sense? What's at the tail end of this? That can start, especially in those 7-inch, smaller, stressful situations, start to be like, oh, so the needs are, when you're tired, you need rest. And people think rest is just sleeping. No, there's physical rest, which is, I mean, this is your wheelhouse. It's walking, non-exercise.
Recovery. Yeah.
Yeah, non-exercise activity, thermogenesis, right? Right. Neat activities, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many of my clients I like gently suggest, I'm like, walking after meals, walking when you're stressed, walking to be more creative. And it's like and it's like all of us who are super competitive have dismissed walking because we're like, it doesn't count. It's not fast. It's not intense. It's amazing. But there's other kind of rests, and I'm pulling on, I forget her name's work. This is someone's work who has identified these type of rests, but there's emotional rest, right? So hiring someone like you, or coming into Truth with Food, where you can have someone help you figure out what's going on, right? And so that's not all on you. So there's different kinds of rest that you can, again, and I like focusing on needs because it offers flexibility, right? I mean, some of my clients, I'm just thinking of one client, she's a partner in a law firm, and she's on the 50th floor of the building. And it's like so many of these ideas for like, she's like, I bill every 6 minutes. I don't even have time to go down the elevator to the 50th floor. I mean, well, now she's a partner now. She's not the same. But point being is you have to be able to find something that can fit your environment, right? So that's why focusing on needs enables flexibility. With uncertainty or anxiousness is often how people can identify that, is you need to feel resourced. People think they need to feel in control. That's not true. You need to feel resourced in amongst that. So like if you think about during COVID, if you were someone struggling with food, how could you have resourced yourself more? And that might mean, I know we were like daycares, like there were no daycares. I just had a baby. It was like, we never planned on having a nanny, but we ended up having to get a nanny so that like we could both work. And it was not the expense that, we planned on paying, but it was like, I don't know how long this is going to happen. And my husband and I both work. So it was like, you have to find resourcing, and resourcing can also be rest, right? So some of these,
time resource. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But always plan for more time and energy than you think you're going to need when you have to resource.
Yes. Yeah. We were talking about your new program that you're launching and how like the amount of work that creates that you don't necessarily expect. And now all of a sudden it's blocks in your schedule you didn't account for. And you're like, okay, now I need to move things around. Yeah. But you have a really excellent, great way of communicating, Ali, that I appreciate here. I hope the listeners do as well, where just the way you put the emotional rest right there, that term, I'm going to be using that from now on. Honestly, it's a simple 2 words that I haven't quite heard people use that, but the fact that you need support and community and someone else to lean on is really, really important. Because not only does it gives you the emotional rest, right? It gives you the extra, it's like you're borrowing their whole history and experience to be your partner, in this thing. And so then creates future emotional rest too by accelerating your knowledge and your everything. So, yeah.
I just want to give credit. That is not my term. There's a woman, she's her doc. I forget what her name is. I'm like totally blanking right now. But she is the one who came up with 7 types of rest. So I just want to make sure. And
it's okay. I wasn't saying you trademarked it or anything. It's like Kleenex,
I think that's a problem. Like I really think like giving sourcing, rooting back from where the people who have contributed, because it's all a conversation. We're all having conversations together. So I just want to give her credit. But I feel like if you Google 7 types of rest, she has a TED Talk, it will come up.
I'm going to do that, 7 types of rest, because that again is a very nebulous topic when people talk about rest and recovery.
Yeah,
even when I try to do it, it's like
spiritual rest, creative rest.
Yeah.
There's active and passive physical rest, emotional rest. And I'm forgetting a couple of the other, sensory rest.
Okay.
So which,
I know what that is without even having explained to me.
Right.
I need some sensory rest. Not right now. This is actually a very rejuvenating conversation. So
good. Do you want me to go to I and L for the needs as well?
What do you mean from T.A.I.L?
Yeah. So I did T and A.
Yeah. Oh, you mean because we're revisiting it? Yes, please.
Yeah. So I is when we're feeling inadequate, we need a compassionate witness. And this is important because I want to define it because a compassionate witness isn't someone who's going to try to swoop in and fix it for you, right? So a lot of times when my clients are like, oh, I'm struggling with my food and why'd I fall off track? It's like they'll go to like the one person that knows they're struggling and they're like, you're beautiful. Don't worry about it. Or someone's like, why are you still hung up on that? And it's like, okay, you want someone who trusts that you can figure it out if you just have the space to like have a soft landing. So I just wanted to define that for people and that's why working with someone like you or me in Truth with Food, is like someone who's like, I know how to support you in this with like, making you more self-sufficient, but you first have to like know what's happening and all that stuff. But a compassionate witness with anything, right? Like even, like my mom friends, like sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Like, you could take care of yourself, whatever. But when you have a toddler and are working and daycare closes and just people being like, I know, right? Like, it's just like, I feel seen, you know? And that actually brings me to L, which is loneliness. And loneliness, we all have a need to feel significant. We have a need to feel like we are contributing and that we matter. And so really when we're feeling alone, we have to feel like even our struggles are important and matter. So like even if you're my client who's in the cupboard struggling with parenting, it's like, okay, what's important to me here? How, do I need to get support? How do I want to show up to myself? What do I value? Maybe is that need that needs to be significant. But those are the four needs that come with those triggers. And then as those get satisfied, you stop turning to food because the real safety or belonging need is being satiated.
Is being met. So that wraps the whole thing up really nicely, right? Because you've got the true needs, you're satisfying them no longer with food. All right, beautiful. I love that. Is there anything else we didn't? It's a lot, I know. And is there anything else we didn't cover that you wish I'd asked about in this whole realm?
No, I think it's a great question.
Okay.
I really appreciate you sharing your story because I think that prompted everyone else who's listening to think about that for themselves.
Yeah, I could probably do that more. Maybe I have a little bit of a wall when it comes to that stuff, but it's all good. All right, cool. So I know there's a lot going on in your world. I would like listeners to be able to find you. I also know you have a program launching this month, and normally we don't do big promotions on this, but for this specifically, I do want people to know everything you just talked about, they can get that kind of support. So tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, if people want to go to alishapiro.com and like Philip said, my Truth with Food program, which this is actually the 14th year I've run it, or it'll be the 15th year. And it's been featured in all sorts of media. Well, my clients' weight loss success has been featured in media, but it's a 6-month program that helps you author a new story around belonging to find food freedom. No white knuckling required. It's 6 months, 13 group coaching calls with me, and a research-based client-proven framework. Because again, frameworks create choice, help you become more self-aware versus I attract a lot of perfectionists who, think it's like, oh my God, am I going to have to white knuckle and perform this perfectly? And it's not that. And then we also do cover the food piece around blood sugar and gut health. And nice. So, yeah, because it's an integrated program and it is life-changing. And people can go to alishapiro.com/Truth with Food group program. And you can see a ton of testimonials. It's a very thorough page. I'm a very thorough research-based person, but I also, academia and theories can only take you so far. So you'll see the real world applications. So for people who want deep and practical, this is like, and really want to learn that consistency, staying on track, and to eliminate free up all the energy that the food noise takes and puts that in a different direction for 2025. This is the program for them.
Awesome. I will encourage people to check it out. And I'm going to include the exact link. We'll make sure we get the right link in there for folks. So take them right there from the show notes. And I encourage you, if you're listening, if this sounds like something you could use the help with and reduce your get some more emotional rest, Ali seems like the right person to go to. So Ali, thank you so much for having this amazing conversation, sharing your expertise, your wisdom, your positive energy. It was great to have you on.
Thank you, Philip, for having me. And I'm looking forward to having you on Insatiable.
Me as well. Looking forward to it.